In this clip, we are going to discuss the basics of the price elasticity of demand, the different values it can take, and the implications for consumer behavior. So, first of all, let's look at the formula. The price elasticity of demand is equal to the percent change in quantity demanded due or divided by the percentage change in price. Notice the absolute value here. This is going to be very important because by taking the absolute value of this ratio, we are going to make sure that all the numbers that we compute are positive, and that's going to simplify interpretation a lot. So let's look at a basic example. Let's think about a good like gasoline, right? Gasoline doesn't have a lot of substitutes. So let's suppose that, I'm going to continue with my formula here. Let's suppose that the price of gasoline is increasing significantly. Let's say it's going up by 40%. Now, because we don't have a lot of choices to substitute for gasoline, we know that we need to reduce our consumption, but normally we reduce that amount of gasoline consumed by an amount less than the percentage increase in price. Let's say we reduce consumption by 20%. Now, we need to take the absolute value here, and this is going to give you a value for the price elasticity of demand of 0.5. Notice that this number is just a number. This is not 50 cents, it's not half a gallon, it's only 0.5. By itself, doesn't have a lot of meaning until you connect this with a table. The table that, comes in a different shape in your textbook, but this is just to simplify. When the price elasticity of demand is less than 1, we say that the demand is inelastic. Inelastic meaning that consumers are not very responsive to changes in prices, which is the case of gasoline. You see, the price is going up by 40% and the quantity demanded is only falling by 20%. That's inelastic. Now, this is different than, let's say, we're talking about a different good here. Let's say we're talking about chicken. Imagine that the price of chicken is, let's say, going up by 40%, and now we have options. If chicken is getting very expensive, you can switch to beef, to fish, to tofu, or something else. So normally consumers respond very quickly and significantly to price increases in chicken. Let's say we reduce our consumption of chicken by 80%, at least temporarily. Well, the absolute value indicates, after you perform the calculation, that the price elasticity of demand for chicken is 2.0. Again, this number 2 is not 2 chickens, it's not $2, it's just a number 2. Which basically means that when the price elasticity of demand is larger than 2, we say that the demand is elastic. That means that consumers are very responsive to changes in prices, like here, like the case of chicken. Now, there is a situation where, the price increase and the quantity demanded reduction are about the same or exactly the same. So imagine a situation where the price of any good, let's say, increases by 40%, and we reduce our consumption by 40% as well. Well, this is clearly going to give you a price elasticity of demand of 1.0 because these two numbers, the numerator and the denominator, are exactly the same amount. This is not very common. This is actually very rare, but mathematically possible that, the price elasticity of demand equal to 1 is what we call unit elastic. The demand is unit elastic, which means not very responsive, not very irresponsive, it's just unit elastic. Now, if you remember in the lectures, I also mentioned two extreme cases, right? Two extreme cases that correspond to perfectly inelastic and perfectly elastic. So let's talk about the first one. When the price elasticity of demand is equal to 0, you know, what do you need for this ratio to be equal to 0? Well, that the numerator is equal to 0, that quantity demanded doesn't change, that this is equal to 0. So that means that it doesn't matter what price change you have here, QD is not going to change. That means that the demand curve is perfectly inelastic. In other words, totally, completely irresponsive. And the opposite extreme case is when you have that the price elasticity of demand is equal to infinity. Mathematically, this is correct, although intuitively this is more difficult to explain. But this basically corresponds to the perfectly elastic demand curve. Again, as I explained in the lecture, these are two extreme benchmarks, theoretical benchmarks, but you know, they are useful because they are precisely the extremes. Normally, all the calculations that you are going to be looking at move in this range. You know, they are either larger than 1, smaller than 1, and very rarely equal to 1. So, don't forget absolute value so that you only have positive numbers. Remember, this simplifies the analysis a lot by looking at tables like this. All right, if you have questions, please let me know.